Hey guys, John here, and thanks for joining me today in this video. It's going to be a primer on power. What is power, how do we train for it, and why it's so valuable for lifetime athletes. So first of all, if we take a look at power as one of the big five capacities of athleticism or human performance, so that's along with strength and speed and agility and endurance. Power is unique because it exists along what is known as the force-velocity curve, and you can also think of that as a curve with strength and speed on either end. So when we're training for power, if we're doing slightly heavier, slower bouts of exercise, that may be called strength speed. But then when we move into lighter resistance and faster velocities getting closer to maximum, that is speed strength. Just wanted to share that nomenclature so it didn't seem foreign. From a physics perspective, power is defined as force times distance divided by time. And we can actually subdivide power into two areas for our purposes as lifetime athletes and looking at that big five in our training. We can look at anaerobic as well as aerobic training. And when we're training for power in anaerobic capacity or perspective, we're going to be doing a number of things, and here's a few examples. That could be Olympic lifts or variations of them. It could be pushing a sled or pulling it or dragging it using a drag rig, things like that. Flywheel training, elastics, medicine ball throws, as well as resisted runs of different types. All of those things elicit power, and power is one of those things that probably is overlooked or in the suboptimal situation for many fitness enthusiasts and certainly even some recreational athletes. And hopefully after you see this video, you'll realize that power training is essential for an athlete, but fun and very effective in increasing your overall fitness and performance abilities. When we think about training for aerobic power, we want to always make sure that we've got an adequate warm-up, some activation, some preparation to just be ready to do those higher challenge modes in our training sessions. It's fairly important that we get relatively close to maximum effort or max intent to elicit, again, that adaptation or training response which we desire. And this is certainly not written in stone, but power could last just a few milliseconds, such as with an Olympic variant, or it could possibly, let's say, go up to about 20 seconds. Now, keep in mind that working at max effort anaerobically for 20 seconds is a very long time. So I didn't want you to think this was locked in, and certainly that's true in the research because there's a lot of overlap. But think of this as relatively brief. We also probably are looking at low reps. If we're doing true power training with those max efforts, we're not going to do 30 repetitions of any type of those activities. We're probably going to be seeing single-digit total episodes. And also the rests tend to need to be long, or the work-to-rest ratio needs to be fairly significant. So if you go really hard for just a few seconds, it may be an equivalent number of minutes that's necessary to fully recover to produce that quality effort again. Thinking about the work-to-rest ratio a little further, we can manipulate that if our goal is conditioning. And so let's say we're using what's known as workout density, in other words, compressing the rest intervals or rest periods in between these bouts of power. We may not develop quite as much overall total explosive power, but we can get a very strong conditioning effect, and that's popular in the training circles. Now, when we move into aerobic training, one of the things you'll notice is I've got this green blended up there. All of the energy systems are always blended when we're doing anything, and so we have the CP or the phosphagen system, which is alactic. Then we have anaerobic metabolism or glycolysis, as well as aerobic metabolism. So we're still using some aerobic metabolism when we're training anaerobically, and also we're using some of our anaerobic capacities over here in what we think of the classic aerobic mode of training, where these reps for developing aerobic power, also known as maximal oxygen uptake, might go anywhere from, on the low end, maybe 20 seconds, maybe a bit longer, up to 5 to 7 minutes per se. In fact, that's actually a standard, the 5 to 7 minute test in several different modes to see what one's maximum aerobic power is. And some of those modes, some examples would be biking, swimming, running, rowing, ski erg, cross-country skiing, things like that. Most of this work is done in what we classically know as zone 4 and 5, and using a 5-zone model, which is most common. And one of the things to keep in mind with aerobic power training is it's going to produce a lot of lactic acid. And metabolically, what happens is quite rapidly that's converted or buffered into lactate, and then we have hydrogen ions, and that's what causes what's known as the acidosis, and that's the familiar burn and lockup which you feel in your muscles. So everyone's familiar with that. What happens with training, though, when we do any of this power training is not only can we get better at higher energy production and higher force and speed production, we also have an increased tolerance to the presence of these metabolites and an ability metabolically or enzymatically to clear them more rapidly. So summing this up, talking about power training, probably the burning question is, well, how much of this should I do? Quite frankly, in your program design, if you occasionally touch on power, perhaps 2-3 times per month, most of the year, that's great. You're going to maintain the presence of that ability within your mighty animalistic beastly system. And really to emphasize it cyclically, once a year or so, I think that's quite valuable. So this is oftentimes built into professional or other sports training elements, and that's exactly the same thing that we do with our online coaching clients, the one-on-one folks, the members of the training tribe, as well as those in Fit for the Field, the online hunter conditioning system, because power is so important. Right now, those guys are doing a lot of work with sandbag drags, for example. And it's great fun, it's a great challenge, but it also produces amazing fitness results. So I would love it if you took something from this and incorporated more power training safely and carefully into your program. And if you want more resources on this topic or even want to work with me, you can find me at thelifetimeathlete.com. Thank you.